All of the confirmed characters in GTA 6 all want something different, and those conflicting goals are what shape this story. Rockstar has spent a lot of time handcrafting these major characters, and what makes GTA 6 so very interesting is the web of relationships between them. Every single partnership we see is built on trust, shared past, shared ideals, money, or power. And just like in other Rockstar games, these foundations rarely last. Today, I'm going to be breaking down every confirmed relationship in GTA 6 and the ripple effects that these relationships will have for the story. Before we dive into Jason and Lucia's relationship, I want to pose to you the question of why would Jason risk everything for Lucia? Well, to answer that question, we're going to have to look at a lot of factors to get to that answer. From everything that we know, the amount of trust Jason and Lucia have is absolutely next level. Even before we see them reunite, there's a line that hints at just how deep the relationship goes. Jason talks to a prison guard who asks, "Have I seen you here before?" And Jason replies, "You might have." That line has a few possible interpretations of what it could mean for the story. Some think that it points to Jason working with the feds, but I would like to interpret it as Jason has visited Lucia in prison multiple times, which says a lot about how much he actually cares about her. The first person to see Lucia the moment she gets out of prison is Jason, and you might not think that's important, but what I find strange is that Rockstar's own description says that Lucia ended up in prison because she fought for her family. So why are they not there to greet her? We've only seen 2 trailers so far, so we could still see more of her family and how big of a role they play in the story. But as of right now, it's interesting to think about why aren't they there to greet her along with Jason? More than that, the amount of crime they commit together says everything. They rob banks and convenience stores together, they run from the cops together, and if that's not trust, I don't know what is. Looking at both of their backstories, they're both looking for a way out. Jason wants more from his life and does not want to stay stuck working under drug smugglers. But life seems to keep getting into his way and pushing him away from his goal. And the same goes for Lucia, who's lived a hard life too, and wants that same escape. What they share is a belief that crime is a solution to their problems. And the trailers give us evidence of this claim, since neither of them shows any hesitation in robbing stores, engaging in shootouts, or performing stick-ups. Right now, the story looks like it's building towards one big last score for both of them to escape the life that they are stuck in. I believe that both Jason and Lucia need each other for direction. Jason, from everything that we know, is largely directionless. He grew up around crime, and because of that, he always got into trouble as a teenager. He tried to change his life for the better by joining the army, but ended up right back working for drug smugglers anyway. It was not until he meets Lucia that he actually starts hoping for something better. Lucia's similar, except that she's more driven to accomplish her goals. Rockstar describes her as wanting the life that her mother dreamed of since they lived in Liberty City. But instead of half-baked fantasies, Lucia is prepared to take matters into her own hands, but she still sees a life with Jason as her way out. And what this tells us is that she's driven to accomplish her goals, and Jason is the centerpiece of how she plans on getting there. She loves him, but there's also more than that. She's more willing to steer him wherever she needs him to be to change the odds into her favor. What Lucia changes in Jason is a sense of urgency and direction. Lucia has been shaped by events that have permanently changed the way that she sees the world, such as growing up in Liberty City and especially her time in prison. Rockstar states this directly by saying she's fresh out of prison and ready to change the odds in her favor, committed to her plan no matter what it takes. I believe that it's this mindset that influences Jason to actually start pursuing a better life instead of just drifting through one. And of course, his love for her plays a part in that too. I have a couple of theories of where this could all end, but unfortunately none of them are happy ones. But what do you expect? It's Rockstar. They don't really do completely happy endings. From everything we have talked about, the trust, the dependence, the way that they push each other towards something better, I think those factors are what makes the most popular fan theory about Jason and Lucia so true and so unsettling at the same time. A lot of people believe that either Jason or Lucia could be working with the cops, and on the surface that might not make a lot of sense, not after everything we've seen about the relationship so far. But that's what makes it exactly worth taking seriously, because the best betrayals in Rockstar games are never obvious. It always comes from the person closest to you. And if it does come down to betrayal, I don't think it's going to come from any motivation of greed from either of them. One of them could get everything they wanted by turning on the other just in a single moment of weakness. For Lucia, that moment could come from the same place as everything else about her comes from, and that's her family. If everything she's chasing really does go back towards her family, or even specifically her mom and the life that she never got, it's not hard to imagine that that dream becomes more important to her than her loyalty to Jason. Jason's version of that weakness might look different. The same caution that kept him alive through the army and the years working under drug smugglers could be exactly what makes him pull away first. Not out of greed, but instinct. Self-preservation is the one thing that's protected him his whole life, and it might be the one thing that eventually pulls him away from Lucia. Lastly, there's a version of this where none of them actually betrays the other. We know that Lucia is more driven than Jason ever has been, and that drive could push her into a situation where neither her or Jason could walk back from it. Once Lucia is locked into a goal, it's hard to imagine her seeing the moment it stops being winnable. Jason might be the one who does, and that same caution that kept him alive could be exactly what makes him pull back the second he realized that the score they're chasing cannot be won. Not betrayal, but just two people who want the same thing until one of them sees that it's not worth dying for. Their relationship is the emotional center of GTA 6, but it's also the one with the most to lose. Not every relationship in Jason's life is built on trust, although the next one runs on something different, and that's control. Let's start this relationship with a question. Why does a man who survived decades in the drug trade let a total stranger move into his property? Rent-free, might I add. The answer says more about Brian Heder than it does about Jason. The reason why Jason came to work for Brian and how long they've actually known each other is still unknown. But what we know is something that I've already talked about. Jason has a history of working with drug smugglers, which is likely how the two of them ended up connected in the first place. To put it simply, Brian is a veteran drug smuggler who's been operating since the golden age of drug smuggling in the Leonida Keys. Decades of experience have taught him one important lesson, and that is you must let others do your dirty work. Enter Jason. Right now in the current timeline of the story, both of them have an agreement that lets Jason live rent-free at one of Brian's properties, as long as he helps with local shakedowns and other errands. But this arrangement raises a real problem because there's a significant power imbalance. The entire relationship runs on one thing: control. Brian controls where Jason lives. Jason is stuck doing shakedowns and errands because without them, he has nowhere to go. Lucia is the wedge between Brian and Jason's dynamic. Lucia coming into Jason's life gives him a sense of motivation and direction he's never really had before, which is something that we've already talked about in Jason and Lucia's dynamic. And that's exactly where Brian's influence on Jason starts to wane. The way I currently look at Lucia's mindset is that she does not want scraps. She wants to sit at the table and eat the entire meal. And that ambition is contagious. Think about what the rent-free agreement used to mean to Jason. It was a place to live, a reason to keep his head down, one less thing to worry about. But since Jason is standing next to someone who refuses to settle for less, that same arrangement starts to look like scraps too. Brian hasn't changed anything about the deal he has with Jason. Jason's just only starting to measure it against something bigger. So here's where this leaves us. Brian and Jason's relationship is built on control, a free house for exchange for loyalty. And it worked for a while because Jason did not have anything better to want. But Lucia changed that. She does not want scraps, and now Jason is starting to realize he does not have to settle for them either. The question is not whether Brian actually cares about Jason. It's what happens the moment Jason doesn't need him anymore. Brian, a man who survived decades in the drug trade by making sure other people take the risk, isn't just going to let his leverage walk out of the door, not without a fight, and not without making sure Jason remembers who exactly gave him the house in the first place. The relationship is not built on trust like Jason or Lucia, or at least that's not what it looks like with everything that Rockstar has given us so far. It's built on control, and control only only works as long as one side needs it more than the other. The second that stops being true, we might find out how far Brian's willing to actually go to hold on to it. Now, with Boobie Ike and DreQuan Priest, the only real difference between them is how established they are in their journey in Vice City. Beyond that, they're almost the same character. Let me give you some background on both of them. Boobie Ike is a legend of Vice City who used to be a former street hustler turned into a successful businessman who owns the Jack of Hearts strip club, a recording studio, and a real estate empire, and also the label Only Raw Records, which is his newest venture. One more piece of an empire that he's already built and not something he's relying on. DreQuan Priest's background is almost identical, such as being a former street hustler who always had passion for music. For years, DreQuan booked performers into Boobie Ike's Jack of Hearts strip club, and that relationship grew into something bigger. The two of them then partnered together to launch Only Raw Records. Both of them are genuinely passionate about music, but I would like to argue that DreQuan Priest is far more motivated to see Only Raw Records succeed. Boobie Ike does not need Only Raw Records to succeed. He's already built out a real estate empire, a strip club, and his name is plastered all across Vice City. For him, this is just a passion project. One more piece of an empire he's already secured. But for DreQuan, this is life or death. This is the opportunity that he's been chasing his entire life. Even back in the days of dealing on the street just to get by, breaking into music was always his real goal. Where I see a significant change in their relationship is DreQuan Priest signing the duo Real Dimes to their music label. DreQuan is already more ambitious than Boobie Ike in one specific way. He's trying to build his business empire while Boobie Ike already sits comfortably on his. That gap is where I can see this relationship separating, as DreQuan pushes to establish his own name instead of operating under Boobie Ike's shadow. And it's not just ambition but ego on both sides. Boobie Ike does not need this label to succeed, but that doesn't mean his pride will just sit easy watching something that he helped to build outgrows him. Success under someone else's domain always has a way of breeding resentment, and that can develop in both directions. DreQuan wanting more than he's been given, and Boobie Ike quietly expecting more credit than he's already getting. Even if the relationship does eventually break apart, I don't think it's gonna look like some kind of soap opera level of falling out. It would look smaller than that. DreQuan's own signings quietly stop coming through from Jack of Hearts. New artists get booked somewhere else. Only Raw Records starts operating less like Boobie Ike's side quest and more like DreQuan's own label that just happens to share his name on the paperwork. Because at the end of the day, DreQuan doesn't want scraps of Boobie Ike's success either. Like Lucia, he wants the entire meal, but he wants to make it himself instead of someone else preparing it for him. Before we finish analyzing the relationship, I want to make it extremely clear that in the actual material that Rockstar has revealed about them, there's no evidence pointing to an actual breakup. Rockstar's own description of DreQuan Priest says that now that he's signed Real Dimes, DreQuan's days of booking acts into Boobie Ike's strip club might be numbered, as he sets his sight on the Vice City scene. That's not really a breakup in partnership, that's just character growth. But it's still fun to build a theory on top of their relationship. So where does this leave Boobie Ike and DreQuan Priest? Unlike Jason and Brian, this isn't a relationship built on control. There's nobody trapped here. And unlike Jason and Lucia, it isn't built on total trust either. It's something in between, two men who genuinely helped each other standing at very different points in their own story. Boobie Ike already has everything that he needs. DreQuan is just getting started on everything that he wants. And history has a way of showing us that once a person who was chasing something finally catches it, the relationship that got them there doesn't always survive to their finish line. Whether DreQuan stays loyal out of respect or eventually walks away to build something that's fully his own, that's left to see when the game actually comes out. But it's still interesting to think about as we start to see GTA 6's story slowly unfold.
Now, for the last two characters that we're going to talk about, they're not a part of the emotional core of the story in my opinion, but they have the power to change it entirely. We'll start with Raul Bautista, and we'll begin with asking a question of why would Jason and Lucia trust Raul in the first place? To explain who Raul Bautista is, he's a longtime bank robber operating in Vice City, and he's best described as charming and cunning. He's always in search of the next big score, and by Rockstar's own description, the kind of person whose crew will eventually have to double down or pull their chips from the table. Raul represents opportunity, which is exactly why I believe he is important to both Jason and Lucia. We already know that Jason and Lucia are trying to find their way out of crime through one final heist, and that's where Raul can come in. From what I've seen across all of the screenshots and the trailers, he's almost always shown alone. The only time he's with other people around is when he's actually pulling off an heist. Unlike Brian's control over Jason or the partnership between Boobie Ike and DreQuan Priest, Raul's relationship is not personal, it's transactional. He's not trying to become anyone's mentor or build a long-term relationship. He just needs skilled people for one job, and Jason and Lucia need one big score to actually get them out to the life that they want. If you think about it, it makes them perfect for each other. Raul gets the crew that he needs, while Jason and Lucia get the payday that could finally get them to the good life that they want. But that's exactly what makes this relationship different from everything else we've already covered. Jason and Lucia trust each other because that's what they've built over years of knowing each other. With Raul, they would be trusting a man they barely even know, only based on the size of the reward that he's offering. That's a really shaky foundation to build a way out of crime. But what really worries me about Raul is specifically his nature to continually raise the stakes for a bigger reward. That's the kind of behavior that could cost him and everyone he's working with extremely. Rockstar's own words warn that sooner or later his crew will have to double down or pull their chips from the table, as we have already said, and that's a red flag. One way I can see this manifesting in the story is that Jason and Lucia and the group that they came with could get everything that they came for. The score goes right and the money's there. What Jason and Lucia have been looking for is finally there. But Raul doesn't stop. He sees one more opportunity, one more reason to push further. And now everybody is put into a situation where they can lose everything because of just one man's recklessness. Raul isn't dangerous because he's a bad person, or at least I don't know, because there's so little about him. He's dangerous because he's exactly what Jason and Lucia need at exactly the moment that they're most desperate for it. The same big score that could finally set them free could just as easily be the one that never lets them go. And if Raul represents opportunity, what does Cal Hampton actually give Jason that nobody else can? Cal Hampton is about as different from Raul or any other character as you can get. He's not chasing a big score and he's not trying to change the way that he lives. Rockstar describes him as the kind of person who feels safest at home listening to the Coast Guard communications and is convinced that there's secrets beneath the surface of ordinary life that nobody is paying attention to. At first look, he might look like some comic relief character, but like I've said in my last video, he provides information that most other characters could not give out. While Brian offers Jason a house to stay in and Raul offers a payday, Cal might be the only one offering Jason something that keeps him alive long enough to enjoy everything he gets throughout the story. And Cal's already been confirmed as one of Jason's closest friends, and he's already has a connection with Brian as being an employee in Brian's Boatworks and Marina. Unlike Raul's transactional trust or Brian's controlling trust, Cal's relationship with Jason looks like real trust built before any of this criminal opportunity ever showed up. Every other relationship in this video has a reason to fall apart or fracture. Brian has control to lose, Raul has greed pulling him further, and even Boobie Ike and DreQuan Priest have ego pulling them apart. But I don't think that Cal has any of that. He's not trying to build an empire, take Jason's place, or get a bigger cut of the profits. His entire character is just built around comfort, not ambition. And in my opinion, I don't feel that Cal can betray Jason or Lucia. If this story really is about characters wanting different things that can pull them apart, Cal might be the only exception. The guy who does not want anything that Jason has, and because of that might be the only person left standing beside him by the end. Every major relationship that we've looked at in this video is built on something different, and every one of them is fragile in their own way. Jason and Lucia are built on trust, but that same trust is exactly what makes a betrayal so horribly possible. Jason and Brian are built on control, and control only lasts as long as one side needs it more than the other. Boobie Ike and DreQuan Priest are built on shared ambition, but that ambition only stays shared for so long before one person outgrows the other. Raul offers opportunity, but the same greed that makes him dangerous to work with is the greed that could cost everything with everyone around him. And then there's Cal, maybe the only relationship in this list that isn't built on something that could eventually break apart. Every major relationship in GTA 6 wants something different, and that's the whole point. Jason wants an escape, Lucia wants to finally win, and Brian wants control. Boobie wants his legacy respected, DreQuan wants to build something entirely his own, and Raul just wants the next score no matter how much it costs. And Cal just wants to be Jason's friend, or at least I guess. That's okay. The question isn't whether these relationships matter, it's which one will break first. Thank you for watching the video, and follow for more GTA 6 breakdowns.